Tonight, the battle has begun for a new Speaker of the House. Last night, California Republican Kevin McCarthy was voted out of the role after just 9 months.
McCarthy making history as the first and only Speaker to be removed by a motion to vacate. Now, Republicans in Congress are working to find a new Speaker with only 43 days until a potential government shutdown.
So far, Ohio Representative Jim Jordan and House Majority Leader Steve Scalise of Louisiana have announced that they would like to try their hand at it.
So joining us tonight to break down the chaos that is playing out in the Capitol are Democratic consultant Adolph Mongo and Republican strategist Jason Roe joining us via Zoom. Gentlemen, thank you both.
Thank you.
So how are you feeling about what we're seeing play out right now?
Couldn't happen to a nicer guy. Well, you know, we don't know what we're going to get now because you got some crazies. I mean crazy. Jim Jordan, he's out of his mind. But why should the Democratic Party save Kevin McCarthy? He untrashed the party. He put himself in that position. He made a deal with the devil. And there it is. It come back to bite him in the butt.
Jason, by many accounts, a lot of people expected this to happen. In fact, when Speaker McCarthy became Speaker, it was not an easy process and all but guaranteed that he could potentially have a short stint in the position. So do you think the way this is all played out is at all a surprise?
It really shouldn't be. I mean, I guess it's a surprise from the standpoint that we've never seen this before in American history, and it's pretty remarkable. Listen, I think Adolph is right when he says that Kevin made a deal with the devil. I think he might be wrong when he says that Jim Jordan is out of his mind. But this was foreshadowed by the 5 or 6 days that he put himself through. I found it to be a humiliating process, and I don't think there's anything that I might want to be victorious at that would allow me to put myself through what he put himself through. But he did make a deal with the devil, and you have some radicals that are there for performance conservatism and are political arsonists, and they don't even have a plan. You can tell there's no plan. The plan was merely to bring Kevin McCarthy down, and there is no Act Two for the folks that were involved in this coup.
A lot of people across the country, Adolph, have been very frustrated with the state of politics lately. I think you just used the term crazies running around in there. How do you feel about the fact that this is just kind of playing into that chaos that people have been talking about for so long?
It used to be rules of engagement, Republicans, Democrats, you know, you can beat each other up on the floor, etc., but you can get stuff done. You can talk to people. Now, people don't want to talk. If you don't agree, listen, you're the enemy. And they don't want no bipartisan anything. And at this point, I'm worried that you might see this happen again. 2 or 3 speakers. They're going to have more speakers than they have presidents at Michigan State, the way it's happening in D.C., you know. So if you got one person that can say, oh, I don't want you, here we are.
Yeah. Jason, it seems like former Speaker McCarthy's fatal error was not being able to maintain the trust of enough people, not all of the GOP, and certainly not enough of the GOP as well as the Democrats. Do you think there is anyone in Congress or otherwise who could manage to hang on to this position and please enough people on one or both sides to stay in the position for long?
Well, you know, listen, I've known Kevin 30 years. We used to fight in the Young Republicans in California in the 90s. And so, listen, he's always been a little bit of a shapeshifter when it comes to politics. And so it's not surprising that he made some commitments in order to secure the speakership that he was not probably going to live up to. That part shouldn't be a surprise for folks that know him either. But I do think that this opens up a door that we've never really opened up before, where a small minority can now affect their will on the entire 435 members of the House. I don't think the Democrats' hands are clean on this by any stretch. I don't know that if I were them, I would have done anything differently than to do what I can to make sure that my opposition leader falls apart. But the idea that they come out of this as if, you know, there's no culpability on their hands, I think is disingenuous. But the reality is, any speaker, whoever that next speaker might be, now has to worry about fighting a rearguard action from his own, Republican conference, his or hers, while out there trying to fight against the Biden administration and Democrats in the House and Democrats in the Senate. So I think it leaves Republicans in Congress in a very vulnerable position where the leader is not necessarily empowered to lead. And even if the next speaker visits punishment on these 8 Republicans that voted to oust him, he still needs their votes, he or she, whether it's to get legislation done or to maintain power. And so it's really a very difficult vice that the next speaker will be in.
Speaking of Jason, also want to ask you, we have heard a few names tossed around so far. Any thoughts on that?
Well, from everyone I've talked to today in Washington, Jim Jordan and Steve Scalise are the two, obviously, that are publicly running at this point. I think Jordan has a slight edge within the House Republican Conference. I would keep an eye on Patrick McHenry from North Carolina, who I think is a real legislator, and I think someone that all the factions trust. So he is the pro tem speaker at the moment, which doesn't give him much power other than to preside over choosing the permanent speaker and a few other things. You have Tom Emmer, who is the chairman of the NRCC and helped get the majority. He's now the majority whip. His name has been mentioned. You don't become the whip, the vote counter, without broad support within the conference. So I'd keep an eye on him. But, I'd go back to when Paul Ryan became speaker. It took several ballots, and he was not necessarily at the top of the list when that process started. And so given the kind of extraordinary situation that we're in, the names that we're talking about today might not be the names that we're talking about 48 hours from now.
Sure. And Adolph, how do you think all of this chaos and the infighting plays into 2024?
Who knows? Listen, you got a former president who on trial in 3-4 different states, been charged with all kind of crimes, but still leads the pack. He got 40-50% support going into these primaries. You don't have to debate. Who knows? It's chaos, but the genie is out of the bottle. Anything that can happen. But I'm gonna tell you what's gonna happen. Some of these Republicans that got elected in swing districts where Biden won, they might be in trouble. So we can see it flips next year and you see a Democratic Congress.
Just over a year away from election time, Democratic consultant Adolph Mongo and Republican strategist Jason Roe, thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you.
And we're back after this.